We purchased our labor of love on March 17th, 2010. It's 10 years later, and something we never even gave a thought to was something such as this terrible disease, COVID 19, caused by a novel or new coronavirus that would disrupt the whole country along with many other countries. Disrupt can't even start to describe what this virus has done to the world. We are doing the best we can and following the guidelines. The hardest part for me right now is the isolation from family and friends. I am looking forward to a big picnic for all of us when life gets back to normal. I can't and shouldn't complain about my isolation because my isolation is nothing compared to the isolation, sacrifice, and risk that the doctors, nurses, and all the other healthcare employees, along with all the other numerous types of essential workers out there, are facing. I have made masks with 2 tie strings and masks with 4 tie strings using what I have at home: material, thread, and a sewing machine. I am not saying my mask will prevent COVID 19. These masks are in no way to replace the N95 respirators or to replace a surgical mask or any other store bought mask. I am not saying that a healthcare worker taking care of patients with COVID 19 should be using these masks. I am not declaring that these masks will prevent any disease, viral or bacterial. What I can tell you is that working on our restoration project, we have used many disposable masks in the past and other types of masks as needed, depending on the project. I can tell you that we did not or do not have a stockpile of masks for working on the restoration. We bought them as needed for our projects. I haven't needed a mask lately because I've been doing interior painting and I don't wear a mask to simply paint. I never gave it a thought that there would be a day when we couldn't buy masks when we needed them. I am making masks for our personal use to be used on certain restoration projects, a washable, reusable, 100% cotton double layered mask, for I feel this mask will be better than no mask at all. As for COVID 19, we will continue to follow the guidelines and practice the social distancing of 6 feet from others. When I do need to get some groceries, I will be aware of all those people around me and maintain the 6 feet distance from others the best I can. And along with doing that, I will wear one of my homemade masks as a little added feeling of protection, yet knowing that the mask alone and or with the 6 feet distancing will not prevent me from getting the virus. But it may help me feel a little more secure and feel like I at least have a small amount of control. While wearing my mask, I will not let that give me a false sense of protection, for I know it in no way protects me from viruses or bacteria, and I have to be smart and follow all the guidelines as to the COVID 19: social distancing, washing hands, and avoid touching my face, nose, and eyes. I also feel the mask, though not offering me much protection, will help to protect others in case I have the virus and don't have symptoms yet and am unaware that I have the virus. With this virus being so new, I am sure the specialist will be learning more as time goes on. And today, March 31st, 2020, as I read from the cdc.gov website, it says, while the transmissibility of COVID 19 is not fully understood. As of March 31st, 2020, there seems to be a controversy among doctors about the general public wearing masks. As of right now, we can't find any mask available of any type. So for now, I personally will wear my homemade mask as needed. And it makes me wonder, if there was a surplus of masks, if there were enough extra masks after the health care was supplied, would the general public be then told to also wear masks when they go out to get groceries? Would the rest of the essential workers outside of healthcare also be told to wear masks? That is, if there were enough to go around in the healthcare first. So my wondering about this, my gut feeling, is reason enough for me to use my homemade mask. I will treat my mask like a one-time disposable mask, but yet it will be able to be washed and dried and reused. As of now, it says that soap and water kills the virus. Again, I make no claims that my mask can protect me from anything or that they can protect others from anything, but I feel it is something I personally need to do, and I personally feel that it will be better than no mask at all, whether for using on our home restoration projects or using during this terrible new virus. Here are the steps I used in making my mask. I started with a 12-inch by 9-inch piece of 100% cotton material, quilting material. This size of the completed mask ended up being what I would refer to as an extra small to a small mask. I also made masks with about 14-inch by 10-inch pieces of material and about 16-inch by 11-inch pieces of material, which I would say turned out to be medium to large size masks. I folded the material in half with right sides together. With this piece, the 12-inch by 9-inch piece of material, I folded it to be a 6-inch by 9-inch, with the 6 inches being for the nose to chin area, and the 9-inch will be going across the face, like from ear to ear direction. I pinned the open edges I needed to sew, leaving about a 2-inch area on one side open, so that I could turn the mask right side out after sewing. I then sewed the open area closed. If I had the proper filter material that could be used to protect from bacteria and viruses, and if I could purchase that, but I can't that I know of right now, I could leave this area open and be able to insert the proper filter. If I did leave the opening, I would sew the top edge under and the bottom edge under for a nicer finish. I then put 3 pleats across the mask. I chose to put one about in the middle of the mask and then one above and one below. I did these pleats facing down, pinned and sewed. If left like this, it would resemble a surgical mask, which, remember, this in no way takes the place of any store-bought mask. The pleats help to give it a tighter fit on the sides of the face, along with expansion of the mask during breathing. I also wanted a tighter fit around the nose and cheek area, and a tighter fit under the chin area, so that less particles could get inside the mask. I started with making pleats on the bottom edge of the mask. I started with the pleat by going just a touch from the center of the mask on one side, and then did the other pleat on the other side of the approximate middle of the mask in the same way. I made sure these pleats were in opposite directions, with each going out away from the center of the mask. I decided to put in one more pleat on each side. I totally guessed at how big to make the pleats. I didn't want to make them too big or the mask would become too small. I made the same pleats for the top of the mask, knowing that the 2 pleats of each side of the middle of the mask would be my nose area. You could actually customize your mask for your nose and your face, depending on where you put the pleats and how big or small you make the pleats. Here I am showing that I started with the same size of material and that the pleats can be customized to have a completed mask for the size you need. For the ties, I cut 4 pieces of 15-inch by about 1.5-inch material. I wasn't exact on any of my measurements, for it isn't that critical for these ties. For most of my other masks, I used anywhere from 15 to 22 inches in length by 1.5 to 2 inches in width. I do prefer to use the 2-inch width for it's much easier sewing. I didn't measure for folding the edges of the ties over. I eyeballed it and pressed with my fingernails. Then I folded the tie in half lengthwise, pinned, and sewed. For the top ties, I went down about 1 inch from the top of the mask and sewed in place. For the bottom ties, I placed them at the very bottom and sewed in place. I made sure to sew over the ties a few times. I did not pre-wash the material, so I washed my mask after they were completed, and there was a small amount of shrinkage, but not enough that it changed how it fit. But do keep that in mind if you make your own mask. I made another style of mask I refer to as the accordion style mask. I started with an about 22-inch by 13-inch piece of material. I folded it with the wrong sides together, it then measuring to be about 11 inches by 6.5 inches. I eyeballed the turning over of the top edge and pressed with my fingernails, then turned that over and pinned and sewed. I then sewed the side open edges closed without worrying about a finished look. I took the top finished edge and turned it towards me about 3/4 of an inch, then folded it away from me about 3/4 of an inch and folded it again towards me and repeated this until I reached the bottom edge. I pinned and sewed the edges, making sure to sew over the edges multiple times each. I then made 2 straps in the same way that I made the other straps for the first style of mask. I opened the mask up and made pleats at the top of the mask in the same manner in which I did the first style of mask. Here I am showing that on a few of my masks, I zigzagged stitch around all the cut edges of the material to further help prevent fraying. That is entirely up to you if you want to do this step or not. Here I am demonstrating going back to that first style of mask that you could make your ties first and then sew the ties so that they would not show being sewn on the outside of the mask. More of a finished look and just a touch more of your time. You would start with your piece of material opened up with the right side showing. Place the top ties about an inch down from the top and the bottom ties about in the middle of the material so that when you fold the material over with the right sides together, the ties are hidden. You'll have to pin the ties in place, pin around the open edges, remembering to leave about a 2-inch open area on the one side so that you can turn your mask right side out along with pulling the ties through. And before sewing around the mask, you'll have to push all those ties to the center of the mask, making sure you don't catch any of them as you sew around the edges. I prefer the 4-tie strings mask with the ties sewn inside the mask. Though the accordion style seems faster to make and is easier and faster to put on with just the one tie, both are surprisingly comfortable. Both could be left with an opening for a future filter. Both styles could be used to wear over a store-bought mask when they become available to the general public again. Both styles could also be used with elastic straps instead of ties. Have fun making your mask and you can customize it as much as you want to. If you don't have any material, you could cut up an old cotton t-shirt, and if you don't have a sewing machine, you could do this project with a needle and thread all by hand. Happy sewing!